I'm just so happy that there's so many people here today, and it's just been an incredible, conference. I'm really enjoying it, and I hope everybody else is. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got into practice about 17 or 18 years ago. I really began noticing that, people, when I was in practice as a registered nurse and as a nurse practitioner, they would come in and they would have these symptoms, and those symptoms would be treated, and then they'd come back like maybe a year later, maybe 6 months later, and they'd still have the symptoms, and then we just have to give them more medicine. So I began realizing that this really wasn't working, right? And so, I started kind of looking at the body as a whole, and it developed into like, when your body's, telling you symptoms, it's because your body's not functioning properly. So I began looking at, well, what were the other problems these people were having? Usually it was like their digestion, and then it was like, they would have chronic pain or, night sweats and different things like that, which, sometimes can indicate like a subclinical infection. Then they would always be catching things, or they wouldn't be catching things at all and still be sick, which is a sign of a compromised immune system. So I just began looking at different things for people, and then I started looking at genetic predispositions, because it was interesting to me when people got ill, a lot of times those genetics would surface, such as they'd have tremors. And guess what? They would have Parkinson's in their family, but it wasn't a true Parkinson's, syndrome. So, genetic predispositions would then kind of took a role in that. And then I began looking at infections. And what I found was that people usually didn't have like one infection, there were like multiple ones. And then I got involved in Lyme, because I guess nobody else wanted to at the time. And I was very intrigued by chronic infections. So I started treating a lot of Lyme disease. And again, they followed the same patterns. And what I noticed is that you had to treat everything all at once. You had to treat the infections, and so I decided, well, which one am I going to treat? Well, then I decided, let's talk to the patient. Isn't that a good thing? And whatever symptoms that they were, displaying, I would treat those symptoms that were mostly associated with either a viral infection, and when we looked at viral infections, there was usually like, intermittent sore throats, chronic fatigue, just in brain fog, so we would, there's certain clinical symptoms that are associated with, certain infections. And so we would treat the most prominent. And we treat that, and then they'd come back, and then something else would raise their ugly head. Until we finally treated, most of the infections. And then we also actually got the microbiome of the body, or the, whatever's normal flora for your body, balanced. We got the digestive system working. We got the immune system working by either, treating the overactive or underactive immune system, because it's either one or the other. And what was interesting about that is that when we started getting people better, their symptoms would go away. Their little genetic, predisposition kind of things. And so then I began wondering, if you have genetic kind of issues, does that mean you're stuck with them? Well, I saw you weren't. And so then I started reading a lot of Dr. Bruce Lipton's literature, which he is, to me, the father of epigenetics. And when we talk about epigenetics, it's about the environment that you're providing for the body. And if you have a very good environment for that body, cells respond. And it didn't even stop there, because what would happen was I'd get people to a certain level, and they just weren't quite well. And so I meditate a lot and I pray because, it's like the best thing for me. And one day I had this epiphany. It was kind of like I got told, emotional trauma, right? And there's some literature on that, and I can't remember the name of the person, but actually when people have emotional traumas or physical traumas, it goes into their body. What I actually found, because I'm really into trends and patterns, I kind of, I can see that very clearly. So what I found was when people had emotional traumas, it usually would go into the weakest part of the body, as well as an infection does that too. And it could be a genetic predisposition, it could be an injury, we don't know what it is, what actually caused it, because it could be varied for various people. But I noticed that it would go into the weakest link of the body. And so that's when we started working, with the emotions. And emotions are very, very big in getting people well. And I definitely know that because, I would just get a person to a certain length and I'd go, what? They should be doing better. But we had to treat the emotional components. And so, we did add, Dr. Barton, who does therapy for us, and she does emotion code, Psych-K, various alternative therapies. I didn't have her at that time when I really discovered this, so I would send people to get EMDR, and that's for PTSD. Well, I felt like everybody that had an emotional trauma had PTSD. And it was interesting because when I started doing that, there weren't very many people here in town doing it. And they would come back and they would just be like, it would be amazing. I can remember one lady who I got to a certain length, and I discovered she had been raped many years ago. And we sent her for EMDR, and guess what? She got well. And she had a component of feeling, guilt is just so big with this stuff. She had a component of feeling guilty because she got raped. So she dealt with that emotion. She got better. I don't even see her anymore. We had another lady who was like 6 years old, and she was outside playing, and somehow the car got out of gear, and she saw her little 3-year-old, when I said it was a brother, get run over and killed. And from that day forward, she thought it was her fault. And she couldn't get well because of a guilt component. And so again, we sent her for EMDR. She's doing fabulous now. So, that's a really, really big component. The other thing that, well, we've always been into, you'll meet my husband, Eric, later on. He's going to talk about the QXCI or SKIO or energy medicine. We've always kind of been into energy medicine from the get-go. But what I really discovered is that every cell and every organ has its own energy field. That's normal for it. And if you do things to that body, like getting around electromagnetic frequencies, it causes disruption in the cells. It causes disruption in the organs. And those organs begin not to function. And that's when really disease can get into the body as well. So that's another component that has to be looked at. So it's very, very important to keep your energy field balanced. You can do that through various ways. Energy medicine, you can do it through acupuncture, chakra healing, all kinds of ways. And you just need to find something that you do every day to do that. Meditation, bringing in the divine connection, heals the body and corrects that energy field. I also recommend to people, if you have Wi-Fi, turn it off at night. Don't have anything in your room that's in us, because that's your time to regenerate and heal. And when you are around that kind of energy, or smart meters actually fry the proteins in the brain. It's a radioactive, kind of energy that comes through. So please don't have a smart meter in your bedroom. Make sure it's on the other end of the room, or be like me and don't have one. And these companies will do that for you if you are energy sensitive. So that's a real big component. And then the other thing that we got into, and Melanie is now helping with this as well, is thinking. Thinking thoughts are energy. And those thoughts are being picked up by your body. Okay? And it's very interesting. We deal with the conscious and the subconscious. And so what we've been finding lately is there's people that really, it is so embedded in their subconscious. I was reading a book, and I can't remember who it was by, because I'm kind of a here and now person, so I forget all that past and it's here. But there was an example that stuck with me. And that example was a little girl that was in school, and her teacher had a yellow tie. And she was like, 6 or 7, something like that. And something happened, and it traumatized her. And guess what? Every time she saw somebody with a yellow tie, she would have an acute anxiety attack. She didn't know why. But between 1 and 6, or is it 0 and 6, Melanie? 0 and 6, that's the time the children get their subconscious set. Okay? So, and it's hard to really change that, but you can do that. You can do that with a number of methods. One of the methods that I teach, if you're in a quick fix, is you want to balance the right and left brain, because you really can't change the subconscious unless you're connected. Because one brain's always, doing, your right brain's kind of like, oh, I'm into meditation. Your left brain's like, oh, gotta get this done, this. So, you really want to balance those hemispheres. Been there, done that. I know, I'm that way all the time. But, so you really, and the way you can do that is a very simple way. It's just crossing your arms and your feet. And it balances those two hemispheres, crossing over. The other one is Psyche, which Melanie does. And there's a lot of hypnosis can do that. What else? Anything else? Visualization, yeah. So, and if you want to talk to Melanie later, she can tell you a lot of that stuff. And so, one of the things you got to do is change the subconscious thinking, because it's just there and it just keeps feeding. And it just keeps disrupting their cells, particularly if it's a negative thought. And when you measure thinking, that they do have energies. Everything has an energy. And so, you really want to stay in those higher frequencies, because they're the healing frequencies. And what are those? Anybody want to tell me?
Joy. Love, joy, and love.
Yeah. Yes. That's, love, joy, happiness, laughter, silliness, which I do a lot. I act like really kind of weird sometimes. But I love it. It's fun. And that brings good energy, and it brings positive frequencies to those cells. And so, we over these span of years, we have learned that healing's not just about going to the doctor and getting a medication. Dr. Ness knows that. He works a lot with that in his office, where he deals more than just taking medicine. And I hear lots of wonderful things about him. And, it's about a lot of different components. A lot of different components. Yes, ma'am?
I'm just letting you know.
Oh, not you raising your hand? Nope. I have 5 more minutes. Okay, so anyway, that's what we do. We have lots of different therapies that we deal with. We have an infusion center. We do actually ozone We do prolozone. I actually train with Dr. Schallenberger, who is the inventor of prolozone. And so she's going to hand out a lot of this stuff. We do all kinds of things. I can't remember them all. But anyway, are there any questions?
For the lay person, what is EMDR?
It's, what is that, Molly? Tell me.
It's rapid eye movement, that you're trying to undo the trauma by reframing it. So it's
Tricking your brain is what it does.
Is it like done with a machine?
no, it's done with light and with eye movement. EMDR.
And I want to introduce Susan. Susan, stand up. This is Susan Corley. Susan is a nurse practitioner. She has a family practice, and she works with us in our clinic, and she is just amazing. And then we have Barbara, and Barbara is our medical assistant. Stand up, let them see what you look like. And she actually functions like a nurse, really. Keeps us kind of, in check. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, but I first wanted to share a book. It's called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and he deals with how trauma interacts with the body, stays in the body. I guess it's just like a quick couple of questions. Based on what you said, it would seem to me that most people who live in the United States who have the energy of the United States and the diet of the U.S. have infections in their body.
Yeah,
so I
because
wanted you to mention a little bit about that.
yeah,
And
so
then
diet. I'm
the
sorry. Go
other
ahead.
part was if you saw a person who was a elder, like in their 80s, and they've been on this U.S. American diet for so many years, and also the mentality is oriented towards Western medicine, how would you work with someone like that?
Well, it's amazing because when you come into our clinic, we recommend no gluten, no genetically modified foods, whole foods, organic, and we actually recommend no processed foods because they're just chemicals. And I had a guy that came in, had high blood pressure, he was fatigued, and he was overweight, and the only thing I got for him intuitively was to take him off, just put him on that diet. 3 weeks later, he came back in, he'd lost 10 pounds, his blood pressure was normal, and he felt great. That's all I did. Very important.
And everybody has infections. And would you say that?
Pardon?
Would you say that most people who have some kind of infection in their body, if they've been doing the standard American diet and
Yeah,
watching TV?
Yeah, because 80% of your immune system's in your gut. And it's common knowledge and a lot of research that genetically modified foods cannot be digested. They cause inflammation. When you're causing inflammation in your gut, you're killing that tissue. It's breaking it down. So you get malabsorption, you get, leaky gut, you get everything. So that's your second brain. And that's what you're doing to your second brain. And so that's 80% of your immune system. And so there you go. So diet's one of the first things we change. Okay, that's it.